everyone, welcome back to BeMore Academy, the place to be to unlock your fullest potential and live your best life. Today, I want to talk to you about vulnerability and how vulnerability is your greatest strength ever. I was thinking how to introduce this subject because it's so I'm really passionate about it. I notice it every day. I'm working on it, or it works on me somehow. And I actually decided to start with asking, how is it that you connect to the true joy in your life and the true meaning and purpose and feeling of this freedom, personal freedom, emotional freedom? How is it that you feel connected to life and that you feel this guidance, that you feel co-creation with the universe? That you feel, almost like in this beautiful playground, and to be fascinated and to be in the moment, to be, in the moment, in the breath, in the awareness, and to almost lose yourself, like dancing with, or playing with. How is it that this becomes part of your experience? I think vulnerability here is the key. And it's quite a journey to actually learn this and to be able to be aware of this and to consciously decide that this is your choice. Because I think it has to do with a lot of expectations of today. A lot of people expecting us to be strong, a lot of people expecting us to be in a certain way. And so I would like to ask you how many times you allow yourself not to be strong. I need to be strong for myself and for my family, and I need to be strong in what I do. I need to be strong and show up for,
For my clients.
For my clients, and just this responsibility that we dress up. And how many times we actually allow ourselves not to be strong? And here's it starts to get interesting, because first of all, I don't think that they really expect that anyone really expect us to be in a specific way. Maybe they're saying it, but what I really believe is that they're actually expecting us to show up, to be us, because what is the reason for us to be here if we're not us, if we're not being true to who we are? And I noticed many people actually building, for many reasons, building these stories about who we are. If I ask you, who are you? And by answering me that question, you will start to explain this and that and left and right. But who are you? What are you? And such a simple question, and if you take time to actually stay with the question and hold the question, you will notice how much stories. It's like a tree of stories of who we are, where we were, what we need to do, what we want to do, what our character is, and it's like the whole wide tree of stories, like tree of knowledge. And it's kind of a safe space to be, having all these stories ready to, I'm this, I'm that, I was there, I was this, and now I'm here, and I'm about to do that, and na. It's really it gives us the feeling of being, the feeling of character, the feeling of stability. We always have something to say. It gives us the feeling of safety, predictability, maybe power. So it gives us all this stuff, and so we continuously invest into these stories, and we try to improve these stories so that next time I met this person or that person, I can tell even greater story. And so where's the problem, right? So living these stories and investing so much into this, the tree of knowledge, the tree of story, starts to be challenging when life shows up in a different way. When life shows up in a way that it's kind of hard to include it into this story. So this is where it starts to get shaky. The story works fine if life is easy, but it's really not how it is. And when life starts to challenge us, squeeze us, like when life starts to squeeze us so that we see what comes out, like an orange. So, and what comes out sometimes surprises us. Maybe it's a lot of sadness or sorrow or fear or anger. So what comes out doesn't go so well with that story anymore, does it? And so because it doesn't go so well with that story, we just tend to push it away and pretend that it's just something that shows up and like forget about it. Let's continue the story, the nice one, the nicest of the story. But silently we know that almost something there would be missing, and the more we live this story, the more we live our life from that story. Means that we start judging life according to what fits the story. For example, wow, this is awesome. You know what just happened to me? This and this and that, and it goes so well with my story, and I'm so happy, no. And I don't really like that. Why are you in this way? I don't like you. Because it just doesn't fit my story. It doesn't fit to where I want to go with my story. And oh my God, this is just terrible. I wasn't expecting this, and now I have to spend so much time and so much effort, and no. This doesn't fit my story. So we start living our story, and we start experiencing life through the story. So we say, life, I like you only when you show up with something that really fits my story well, supports my story. And when you squeeze me, I don't really like that. And if I don't like it, I'll just pretend that it's not there, or create another story, or just, stop doing this. And I've noticed that the more we leave the story, or from the story, the more we start looking from this prism, from these glasses, from this filtering, the less we can actually connect to who we are. Almost like starting to lose the memory of who we truly are. And the less we have faith, because we are now the one living it and taking care of everything and doing everything, predicting everything. And so there's no space for faith. There's no space for connection. There's no space for a miracle, for the unknown. Because for joy, for this feeling of aliveness, for this appreciation of being here, there's no space for now, here and now moment. It's always, let's build up, what's next. And in my life, I have discovered when life squeezed me so much that the story just couldn't hold it anymore. I couldn't hold that story true anymore. It was squeezing me so much. This was in 2008, that I just had to let go. Everything just falls. Everything I thought, everything that was meaningful or important to me, everything I thought I am, is my life, just collapsed. In front of my eyes, everything just collapsed. And so I didn't have any choice but to surrender, because I was physically unable to contain, to keep that show going on no longer. So I just had to surrender. And that was one of the most graceful experiences in my life. Because in that surrender, I noticed that I'm still there. All of my story, all these three collapsed, and I was still there. So it became apparent that what I am was not that story. That what I am is still here. And actually, everything just became more spacious and like alive and radiant. And I started to appreciate much more of this subtle awareness that we are here, that I'm breathing, or that something is breathing me. And that something is showing up as nowness, here and nowness. And it's this state of effortless existence that I now know is truly who we are. Effortless existence, effortless love, effortless, experience. And so from that year on, from that moment on, my life started to build up in really in another way. Of course, there are still moments where I build these stories and I kind of lose myself in those stories and I pretend that I'm this and that and let's go here and there and no. But from that moment on, I have never lost that connection to that awareness of nowness. Sometimes I lose myself a bit more, but life just kind of brings me back into this space, into this memory, into this remembering, being member with nowness, with the miracle of existence. And I've noticed also many other things, that it's because it's effortless, you don't invest so much of your energy into it, but you allow the effortlessness to take care of things. And this is really something else. It's like the dynamic of your creation, of your involvement with life, just changes. And the more I started to invite this surrendering into my life through the exercise of meditation or yoga or dance, or just to allow, fully letting go, to be fully relaxed with what's coming, to be fully relaxed with what I feel, to fully surrender to what I feel, and to allow all this sorrow to show up that I was holding in my heart, and all this sadness to show up that I was resisting for so long. This was the greatest healing. There was so much of emotion in my heart that was never allowed to even surface. And it can only happen if you stop trying to be strong. If you start trusting and surrendering and keep this as your practice, so that things can show up. So the part of you that needs to be hugged can show up, and so you can hug it, you can love it, you can heal it. And so the more and more I start to notice that this ability to surrender and remember with the nowness, with this miracle of life, is the key to connecting to who you are and to experiencing your life from the space of total openness, of total vulnerability, of total unknown. And you start remembering that it's exactly how we were experiencing life as children, as kids. When I was playing, I lost myself into that. There was no one, there was no story of why this is happening and that it's part of tomorrow, and there was nobody trying to put everything together into a story, into a meaning. So it's like losing yourself into this innocence, showing up fully. And sometimes life shows up as something painful. It doesn't mean that it's fun all the time. It doesn't mean that it feels great all the time. It also feels painful so many times. We get hurt because we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, so we feel all the pain that is around us. But in surrendering means that I will no longer build walls, stories around things that feel painful. I allow pain. I allow fear. Something shows up and I surrender. I allow it to show up fully, to take me wherever it needs to take me. So how much power is there? I allow my heart to remain open regardless of what is showing up. I trust life so much that I will not close down no longer. And you start to be aware of this flame that is always there, and that it can just, this awareness can encompass anything. There's so much space that it can just, anything that shows up cannot color it or take it down. There's this subtle awareness that starts to be apparent that it's just not of the same. That nothing that would appear, no form, no event can tear down that spaciousness. And once you realize that in that spaciousness you are connected to universe, to your truth, to your true joy, true happiness, true meaning, true purpose, this becomes so precious that you never want to close down anymore. Sometimes it happens, but you notice it and you go back, you surrender again. You cry as long as it's necessary, but you open up, you show up again. And just to close this up, I would like to invite you to practice it. To create a practice where you practice surrendering, where you practice coming back to this now moment. When you practice allowing for everything to show up just as it wants to. And this can be only 5 minutes in the morning or 15 minutes, or this can be part of your meditation, or just before you go back to sleep. Giving gratitude for everything that happened. And noticing the amount of your surrender that you can hold now. It's interesting how you notice, showing up much more. How you notice surrendering. Something shows up and it would normally make you anxious or fearful or angry. But now, you experience yourself slowing down and just being with that emotion. Allowing the trigger to be triggered. But almost nothing is anymore there to follow the trigger into drama. It's just allowing to feel everything. And almost like bringing space into the moment, bringing allowness, awareness and space into that moment. So that the trigger is, but nothing is being triggered. Sadness is, but there is nothing being afraid of sadness. Nothing is fighting against the sadness. Sorrow is, and nobody is trying to hide it. And you start to connect to this life in a new way. You start to embrace life in a new way. And all the facets, all the tones, all the colors of life, you start to reconnect to it in the fullness.